I remember renting The Adventures of Bayou Billy as well. Who wasn't a fan of Crocodile Dundee when that movie came out? So it's like, oh, it's maybe like that, but video game form. Not exactly like that. And I remember loving it and hating it at the same time because when you punched an enemy, they were still invincible and they could still punch you. And I was like, that's not fair. But I loved the fact that they had not just the beat 'em up part, but also like the driving part, the shooting part. I just loved the fact that it had multiple gameplay styles and loved me Adventures of Bayou Billy. I'm glad I rented it because it would have been frustrating to own and have it staring at you all the time saying, oh, we have a great soundtrack, but boy, you suck at it. There was a store, it was a video store, that also, it was called Curtis Mathis. You could buy like televisions and stuff there, maybe rent to own. I don't exactly remember what the business model was because that wasn't for me at the time. But they did have a small section of videos to rent. And I remember they had like the Muppets on VHS and stuff like that. I know we'd get those like rentals too. But they had a thing there called The Game. It was like the Sharp TV, was like a TV with the game slot that you could actually play Nintendo games in it. And that was the first time I ever saw the game Air Fortress. And I love me some Air Fortress. But because of that, they also had it for rent. They probably just grabbed it from the shelf and just put it in there. So there's Air Fortress. Oh my God. It turns out one of my nostalgic favorites. I talk about it often enough on this channel if you're familiar with the channel. And I just love, I don't know what it is. It's probably a lot of nostalgia too, but it starts out with a shooter stage and then you're actually in the Air Fortress to, float around and shoot the other enemies and blow up the core and move on to the next Air Fortress from there. But I remember seeing that specifically at a store called Curtis Mathis. I don't know if I rented it from there or next door at Crazy Mike's Video, but we had Air Fortress and I remember renting it, and that was one of those games where I rented it, I loved it. I don't know if I rented it a second time, but then later in the future when I saw one for trade or at a used, and we had like our local used store or something like that. I was like, oh, hey, there's that game again. Instead of renting it, I'll just have it. That's where I found out about it. But yeah, Air Fortress was, to me, it was a rental first. Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle was a game I was really, really interested in, and I still love it today.